What's up, Bombshells? Welcome to Bombshell 1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Kia, and I'm your host. Generally, podcasts request donations, but I want you to show love by simply subscribing to my social media platforms by visiting my website at www.bombshell1111podcast.com. I want to see thousands of subscribers on this platform. Leave your comments and I'll show love by shouting you out on my social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. I want to thank you for your continued support as always. And with that being said, let's jump into this new episode.
Hello, my name is Navi Bliss, and I'm here to drop some bombs for the Bombshell 1111.
Welcome back, Bombshells. I'm Kia, and I'm your host. And tonight, you guys will be discussing effective communication in romantic relationships with our special guest, Navi. So without further ado, Bombshells, let's get into it. Welcome, Navi. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to have you here, girl. The energy, I can't wait to get into this conversation about effective communication in romantic relationships. I'm very excited about that. As I told you, the past couple of episodes that I've recorded have been geared towards mainly, personal development and mental health. So this is a nice breakaway from that. And I can't wait for us to jump right in. So again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Navi, down below in the description box, I will have the bio about who you are, what you're doing, where you're from. But for the listening audience, I always love to have the guests just do a short description of who you are, what you do, and where you're from. So can you give us a little bit about what you do, where you're from, who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Toronto, Canada, and what I do is I'm a love and confidence coach, I'm an inspirational speaker, and I'm an author. And my goal in life is to help people to fall head over heels in love with themselves so that they can effortlessly attract the life and love of their dreams without the hustle, with ease.
And so what made you decide to get into this kind of work, Navi?
Yeah, so my own history, I grew up in a home where I was physically and emotionally abused by my mother, and I had really, really low self-esteem. And as a result, that led me on a path of very, very toxic relationships as an adult and abusive relationships as an adult. And after I left my second abusive relationship in a row, I hit a breaking point because I got out of that by the skin of my teeth, and I just realized that can never ever happen again, and that I'm the common denominator in what is coming into my life, and I can't change anyone else, so I have to work on healing myself. So that led me to go on a healing journey for myself. I'd been in therapy already for years, but this included more intensive therapy, and then it included coaching, because I'd gotten to a place in therapy where I would go to the therapist and they would say, it's okay for you to be upset about the things that happened to you. And I would say, I understand, but I'm done being upset. I'm actually really done with it. I don't want to be upset anymore. I want to let go of that, and I want to move forward. And I found that coaching really, really helped me with that. And through coaching, what I realized is that I ended up falling so in love with myself and just feeling so good in my own skin every day. And that's what we want. That's actually what we want from a relationship, right? And we go seeking that outside of ourselves, but it starts with us, and then that allows us to attract people in a healthy way. And then when I was I did private coaching, and I did group coaching, and when I was in group coaching, I realized that I really had a special way to connect with other people and understand what was going on in their lives, which led me on a journey to get certified myself. and to start to help people do that themselves. And then it is actually my coaching that then led me to speaking as well, so that I could impact people in a bigger way, because I realized that I have the power to create impact with people just by sharing my own story, because there might be someone that's not able to speak about their own experiences yet, might not even think that their experiences are worth speaking about, or that there is something wrong. Because the one thing I will say is, when I ended up in how I ended up in these abusive relationships, and why I justified staying for so long, is they were abusive, but the abuse wasn't as bad as the abuse that I grew up with. So I tried to convince myself that it wasn't actually abuse when it was. Mm-hmm. And I found that sharing my own story, when that person that's struggling and they don't know that that might be abuse of what they're going through, it really allows them to feel seen and heard, and start to make the decision to start to step into their power as well.
Oh my God, I love everything you just said, and you are absolutely correct. I would like to thank you, and I appreciate you being willing to share your personal story here with us tonight, and just to share a story, in general, because that could be very difficult to do. And 9 times out of 10 for most people, something traumatic has to happen in order for them to kind of start that journey. Because same thing as for me, going through those relationships and trying to figure out why I keep repeating these same patterns, because of things from the childhood that I didn't address. And it's so true to the fact of what you spoke on when you said you have to learn to love self. Throughout this journey that I have been on, I've learned a lot about self-concept. That is important. And it seems as if that is like the base of, or the foundation of what you do, and what you emphasize on. Self-concept is that the number one thing. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. What I always say is, you should be hard to get and easy to love. Because the easy to love comes when you love yourself, and you can be very, very clear about what your needs are, but you're communicating this in a kind and gracious way. And the thing is, you don't need somebody else to fulfill that for you. So when somebody isn't fulfilling that for you, you're not getting angry, you're getting turned off, and not in an angry way. You're just releasing, and you're like, okay, I'm bored, right? And then you're moving towards the direction of what is in alignment with yourself.
So let's jump right into the conversation on topic for tonight: effective communication in romantic relationships. What makes communication difficult in a relationship?
One of the things that can make relationships or communication in a relationship really difficult is that when we haven't healed our trauma, the thing is, healing is a journey. So I don't want anyone to think that because they haven't healed completely that they're not worthy of love, or that they can't have a healthy relationship. But you have to start, because you need to start to have the awareness of what your trauma is, right? And you need to be communicating your current needs and not from your trauma. And the one thing that I always say is that if it's hysterical, it's historical. So a lot of times we're getting hysterical about things in relationships, and then we're communicating in a way that our partner cannot even listen to us, because they don't even understand where it's coming from. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a partner that can hold space for your trauma and your healing, but that has to be separate from you communicating your needs with them. And it's not the same as they can hold the space for your healing, but they're not responsible, or they don't need to be the person that's walking on eggshells because you haven't healed.
So from your personal experience and from your professional experience, what are some common communication mistakes that you feel people make in love and relationships?
I think that common mistakes that people make, especially women, right, is that they create a lot of noise in their relationship. So noise is when you're saying a whole lot, but and that means everything is getting lost, right? Because at a certain point, because just the way that men are geared, at a certain point they're going to tune out to what you're saying. So you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of noise in your relationship, and noise can come from nitpicking, right? And the nitpicking comes when you're trying to create this outside perfection in your life because you're feeling and you need control because you're feeling so unsettled within yourself, right? So you're worried about how the dishes were placed inside of the dishwasher rather than if they were done. And what happens is you start to do that over time. Even if you have a partner who's willing to help, they're going to become alienated and they're not even going to bother because they're going to think, okay, I can't do it right anyway. And they're going to get tuned out, right? And so these little things end up becoming noise in a relationship. And that's a really, really common mistake that I see people make. And then the big issues get just all raveled in there with the small issues because, the man is tuning out because he's like, oh, she's just nagging me all the time. Mm-hmm. And, he doesn't learn to pay attention. So this is where it's just like learning to really figure out what your core needs are and what's really, really important to you. And what's really, really important to you cannot be every single little tiny detail because that is coming from a place of your trauma. What is important to you are really specific things. So perhaps you need really good quality time in your relationship. Perhaps you need acts of service done for you, right? Like understanding your own love languages, that's a really big part of it. So you can figure out what your needs are and then be able to communicate those things and not get caught up in creating noise inside of a relationship.
Oh my God. And that is so ironic that you say that. I most recently just bought from Amazon the book 5 Love Languages, and I'm in the middle of reading that book now. So ironic you say that. So Navi, can a relationship survive without communication?
No, absolutely not. And when there's a communication breakdown and people are staying together, oftentimes they're staying together because they're afraid of their trauma or they're afraid of being alone or taking that action to step back and choose themselves. And the thing is, when you're not choosing you, someone else can't choose you. And when it comes to communication, what I can say is the things that are there right at the beginning when you meet somebody are also the things that are going to be a problem as you go on in the relationship. And this is where it's really important to not gloss over those things because you're wanting and needing to be with somebody because you don't think that you're whole and complete on your own. It's really important to connect on a deep level to somebody and not rush into relationships. I mean, the one thing that I also always say to my clients is you have to slow down to speed up, because if you're rushing too quickly, if you're jumping into something too quickly, you're not vetting, you're not understanding, you're not really taking the time to communicate in the beginning, and you're jumping into something and then you're unraveling and unlearning things along the way. And why that slows things down is you're going to end up in a whole bunch of relationships that don't work, rather than if you just slowed down and took your time in the beginning, that would allow you to actually enter into the correct relationship for yourself.
And I totally agree with you on that. I myself, I was in a 12-year relationship, and before that relationship, a 10-year relationship. And like you said, never thinking about, because at that time I wasn't knowledgeable about self-concept, about healing, those types of things. I was young. So I had to grow and mature. But had I known that, I would have waited to get into that next relationship and, like you said, heal myself properly. I now have that opportunity. I'm doing that now. So for the past 4 years, that's what I've been working on personally for myself, because now that I know the importance of that, I think that's just the most vital thing when you're leaving a relationship or trying to even enter a new relationship, is working on those things so that you don't bring those things unconsciously into that new relationship. So I totally agree.
Yeah. And then the one other thing that I will also say about communication is that whatever you need to say, like, I don't believe in harsh truths in relationships, because harsh truths and speaking that way to somebody is going to lead to a very harsh relationship. And if you are speaking that way, it's because you're wanting to unleash your pain onto the other person. Whatever you have to say in a relationship, you have to learn to speak your truth with kindness and with grace. And this is also going to show you, because if you are speaking with kindness and grace and that is not being received and it is not being reciprocated, then what that person is going to show you is that they're not capable of receiving or reciprocating you. And that's information for you, right? Because if you have to get louder, if you have to get mean for that attention to be paid to you, for you to be heard, they're actually not really hearing you. They're just trying to avoid the discomfort of you getting upset. And you want someone to listen to you because they're invested in you and they really care about what you have to say, rather than they're trying to avoid getting you upset.
I love it. So Navi, we talked a little bit about effective communication in romantic relationships. So now let's hop into the services that you provide and what you do. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a few different things. So I work with people in their romantic relationships. So people who are wanting to attract that relationship into their life, like they've been in this terrible pattern of either attracting the wrong people or just having all of these short-term relationships that are crashing and burning, and they're super, super frustrated. I also work with people who are already in relationships and they want to bring back the love that was there in their relationship, because the thing is, even like sometimes what happens is you work on yourself for a period of time and you get into a relationship and it's great, and it could be great for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and then all of a sudden you have all of your unhealed trauma that you stop dealing with it now, and it's resurfacing, and now it's tearing apart your relationship. So I also work with people that then want to bring back the love, romance, attraction, passion into their relationships. And I also work with people who want to just build up their confidence. So this can be on a personal level, and this can also be entrepreneurs, because it's all the same thing. I mean, our business world is also about creating relationships and communicating effectively and being able to show up with your authenticity. And that's how you're going to attract your dream partner, but it's also how you're going to attract your dream clients in your life.
And so how do you provide your services? Are they online or in person?
Yeah, so I do most of my coaching online. Every once in a while, I will do a retreat. I haven't done one since the pandemic, but I do private one-on-one coaching, and then I also have group coaching programs as well.
And so, Navi, how can the listening audience get connected to you for your service, or even just for more information?
Yeah, so my website is naviblisscoaching.com. You can also find me on all the social media platforms at Navi Bliss. So that's NaviBliss. So you can connect with me any of those ways. I also have a podcast called the Blissful Love Podcast. And I host some shows on Thriving Women Network. So those are some ways that people can connect with me.
Okay. And so, Navi, is there anything you feel that I missed that you'd like to share with the listening audience?
Just that know that you are so worthy of love. And sometimes when you listen to a podcast like this, you might hear some of the things that I talked about, and that might cause you to judge yourself harsher. And that isn't the point of this, right? Because you're never going to be harsh enough with yourself or unkind enough to yourself to get yourself to a healthy place. It's always just approaching yourself with kindness, because you didn't know what you didn't know. And just think of anything that you heard as an enlightening moment and not a moment to become more self-critical.
Thank you so much for that, Navi. And thank you so much, Navi, for coming on and sharing your knowledge and your tools with the listening audience. I thank you so much for that, and I really appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. And so, you guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. We want to thank Navi for joining us. We hope that you were able to hear something that was beneficial to you. And with that being said, thanks for listening, you guys. And always remember, you are a bomb within your own shell. Peace, love, and light, you guys. Until next time, good night. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell1111 or at Bombshell1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.